Hi, and welcome back. I'm excited today to talk about how we can show more compassion to others. And compassion is a genuine sympathy for the suffering and hardship of others, and it usually motivates us into some kind of action to help relieve that suffering. I know that when I'm the one that's struggling, I'm so thankful for the compassionate people in my life that show up in love and support me through my trial. And so I'm grateful that we get to discuss today how to develop this gift further and how we can spread more love in the world. As we begin our discussion today on how we can show more compassion for others, I want you to think about the very word compassion. Because one day as I sat meditating on compassion, I realized it has the word compass in it. Isn't that amazing? And so if we think of compassion as the compass in our life, it is always going to guide us to love. An actual compass will always guide you to true north, but compassion in our life will always guide us to actions that are filled with love. And compassion is such a powerful word. And one of the things that has helped me to get to a state of compassion for other people is this word that's on a little plaque in my office. It says namaste. And if you're not familiar with the word namaste, but it means the highest good in me honors the highest good in you. I love the meaning of this word because it implies that no one is perfect. No one is expected to deliver perfection 100% of the time. But I'm going to honor you and say, even though you have these flaws and you've made these mistakes and things don't always go right in your life, I'm going to choose to look for the highest good that I see in you. And I'm going to treat myself the same way and look for the highest good in me as well. The second thing I want to share to help us show more compassion to others is to really truly listen to someone when they're struggling. And as we talked about before, compassion is something that really moves us into action often. We're so full of love and a desire to help, it leads us to do something to help relieve the suffering of others. And so as we're listening to people, if we listen with our mind, we will get some information. If we listen just with our ears, we'll probably get even less. But if we truly listen with our heart, that is when their heart can speak to ours. That is when we can really feel and know what they need in that situation. Our heart can only see people through the eyes of compassion. Did you know that? Because I didn't until a few years ago. And so if we think about being able to look at someone from the heart and feel that compassion for them, that's so powerful. The heart is so helpful in this. The next tip I want to share is to be humble in your relationship with others. When they are in those points of pain, it's never going to work if we are in the mindset of judging, of elevating, of criticizing, of comparing. In that state of pride, we will never be able to connect to our compassion. And so we have to be able to be humble in these situations. Pride itself is a separator. It's always comparing and contrasting things. So it's either lifting you up or putting them down, and that separates us. Where humility would bring everybody onto the same level, and honor all of who we are. The next suggestion is to be patient. And sometimes this is the hardest part, to be honest, of compassion for me, because I am an activator. That is my number one gift. I like to take a problem and put a solution in action. I like to solve things, to help people, to lift people, to guide people. And you'll find that in a state of true compassion, it's important to let their will and their heart and their desires guide the interaction with you. They may need to sit in their pain for a while. They may need to feel that sadness and hold on to it so they can really process through it and let go. They might need to take some time being angry or question God or explore their relationships that have been affected. They might need that time to really process through their emotions. And in a state of true compassion, I am only there to support and assist and help. I'm never there to lead and to guide and to tell them what to do. So being patient is an important part of compassion. The next suggestion is forgiveness. And as we learn to forgive others, we really open space within us for peace and love that is pure to enter in. When we're holding on to anger and judgment and resentment towards another person, it's really difficult to feel love and peace at the same time. You can't. And so when we reach out to someone, and when senseless crimes happen or intentional difficulties, intentional violations occur, those are the hardest times, I think, to find that compassion. It's easier to forgive a mistake. It's easier to forgive a human error. We all struggle with that. But when there has been intentional crimes or violations of any sort, those are often the hardest to forgive. And so we're never going to be able to come to a point of compassion through the mind. The mind wants to justify, rationalize, get revenge. It goes straight into ego. It wants to prove we're right, prove they're wrong, prove they're bad, prove they should never be forgiven. And so we can't find that point of compassion in the mind. We must go into the heart. And when we can find a point of true compassion for someone, oftentimes that's the point that we're able to let go. There's a phrase that says, hurt people, hurt people. And I think that's so true. Those violent crimes and horrible violations don't come from a person that is feeling safe and loves themselves. It's likely born out of a violation they have experienced in their life. And so I have some questions that you can ask yourself in those really hard circumstances to see if you can bring this tool of compassion into your life and be able to forgive. The first question is, imagine that you can look into the other person's eyes. What emotion do you see? And if you see anger, I'm going to ask you to go beyond that emotion, because there's something behind the anger. And why are they feeling that? Oftentimes you'll see fear, you'll see that they're broken, you'll see that they're hurt or lonely or scared, they're afraid, they don't feel lovable. There's so many things we can see when we truly look into their eyes. And this can happen just in your mind. It will be very real, a very real experience, even though it's just happening inside of you. The second question is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. What are they experiencing right now? And sometimes we may think, well, they have won. They created this pain for somebody else, and so I am the victim and they are the victor. And yet, what did they win? Nothing. And I cannot imagine the pain that they're already holding in their life toppled with the pain from the actions that they've just created. It must be a very miserable place to be honest. The third question, what life circumstance in the other person caused their brokenness? We can look for that and see. We may not ever know the answer to that. But I think just knowing that it's there can sometimes help us take one step closer to compassion. And the last question, if you could let go of judgment and condemnation, how would you see that other person now? So if you could take their actions, almost like it was an apron they were wearing, and you could just remove that. If you could separate them from the actions that they took or the pain that they created, who would you see them to be? You can look for their heart in that circumstance. So I hope these tips and questions that you can ask yourself have helped you to find ways to show more compassion in your life. I know as we treat each other with mutual respect, as we listen, as we are humble, as we truly learn to forgive and open our hearts to love other people, that will be an instrument of compassion and love on this planet and bring more light into this beautiful world. So I hope if this has helped you that you'll subscribe with the button below. You can also click on the little bell and that will notify you every time we release a new episode. Thank you for joining me, and from my heart to yours, full of love, I say to you, Namaste.